Yeah, I remember Mom Taylor. I remember Mom Taylor years ago, the lady that out get us on the streets. Mom Taylor said, you know, after Papa died, she was all alone, and she was in her feather bed, and she said, one night Jesus just visited her right there and said, listen, I'm going to be your husband now. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to watch over you. I'm going to bless you, and you'll never be alone. How about that? We'll never be alone. Is that cool or what? If we have Jesus in our heart and our life, we'll never be alone. So, my wife has taken on a channel on YouTube. And I watched it with her last night. Just one episode. It was 7 minutes long. But I have to tell you, I shed a tear. I shed a little tear. And it's about a rescue group that rescues puppies and dogs. Dogs that have been abandoned, that are found in junkyards and all over the city. And this group goes in and rescues the dog. And when you see these dogs, they are absolutely mange. If you know what mange is. Just terrible looking, some just in bad shape, skin and bones. And this group takes these dogs in, and what they do is they do a time lapse in the recovery of the dog. And they showed this little poodle. I mean, this was the most miserable looking dog I've ever seen. It was shy, its ears were down, its tail was curled under it. You know how a dog is when it's frightened and abused. And they took this little puppy, I'm not kidding, they shaved it, they cleaned it up, they gave it all the medication it needed, and over time it showed the development. And this little puppy was so happy, its ears were perked up, its tail was up, it was so joyful. And I turned to my wife and I said, honey, did you have any idea the power of love? Say the power of love. And I said, you know, we husbands need a little attention like these dogs. You know what I mean? Oh, come on. We're not that abused. But I'm just saying, you know, if that can happen to a puppy, it can happen to a human. And you know, the enemy is wounded and bruised in a lot of us in the area of love. And when we talk about love sick today, it doesn't mean you're sick of love. All right? What this Shulamite was love sick. She had such a passion for the king that she literally got physically affected by it. Love sick. And I remember when I fell in love with Mariana. I don't know, it was a Holy Spirit thing. And I came back to the States and she stayed in Romania, and I hired a tutor. And she took English lessons every day for 2 months. Because when I went back, I wanted her to speak English. I thought that was a good idea if we're going to get married, that she might speak a little English. And we had a great time. I'll tell you, in our early marriage, it was so interesting on our honeymoon, because she was just learning English, and she learned real quickly. She's very bright. And you know, we listened to each other so intently, and I think it helped us build a relationship. You know what I mean? I had to listen to every word she said, and she was trying to learn English, so she was listening to every word I was saying, and so we really had a good time. Now, we had some pretty interesting times as she learned English. You know, the cultural difference when you move to America, a lot of these people that come from other countries, we came to America, we'd just been married, we were 8 weeks over in Romania, and I didn't know if I could get her out of the country in 8 weeks. Well, I'll tell you what, the U.S. Embassy over there took care of it in 30 days. So we stayed the extra, we had rented this beautiful apartment for 8 weeks. Over there you can get a lot of apartment for $300 a month with a car. Got an apartment with a car. It's a big apartment, beautiful. And these people actually moved out to the village when they said, if we can get $300 US dollars in a month, we'll move out to the village and stay with our parents. You can have our apartment. So they gave us their car and their apartment. And so we had this beautiful apartment, and we stayed the 8 weeks, and it was a great time, because we were building relationship and getting to know each other and understand each other and focus on each other. And you know, sometimes love grows best when there's real attention. You know what I mean? When you're really paying attention. And there are two things in this chapter today I want you to see. One was the voice of the bridegroom, and the other were the eyes of the Shulamite. The face. The face is your main area of communication. You know that? When you walk in and look at somebody's face, you can usually tell where they're at the moment. And so maybe one of the best gifts you can bring people is a joyful face. You know what I mean? And I'm eternally optimistic. I don't know, you can hit me on the head and I'm almost like a puppy. I say, well, all right, it's okay. That's one thing about a dog. They'll come back and lick you even after you haven't treated them too well. So I'm not a dog, but you know what I mean. But this is a great chapter on love, and it continues a love story. We're still in the courtship of the king and the Shulamite. We're still in the courtship stage. So they have not yet gone to the marriage ceremony. We're going to see that later. But we're in the stage of getting to know each other, recognize each other, understand each other, enjoy each other. And you know what? Romance is something that throughout your marriage you can reactivate. We had these songs that Marianne and I listened to all the time. I carried a cassette tape over there, a cassette player. And I had some songs by Neil Diamond. I'm giving away my age now, all right? Whitney Houston, and what is it, Sleepless in Seattle, and some of the beautiful, beautiful songs. Interesting enough, my wife had been listening to all those songs over in Romania. We were on the same note. She wasn't a rocker or anything like that. She liked some of the old 80s. And we were on the same page with that. And so I went ahead yesterday and I put together the old tape of songs that we had back in Romania. And I said, just sit down and just enjoy for a little bit. And we sat down and listened. And you know what? Those old songs reactivate the emotions that I had 25 years ago. Isn't it music powerful? And the song, Solomon wrote over 1,000 songs. You know that? He was a prolific musician. He wrote over 1,000 songs, but this was the song considered the song of all songs. It was the song of songs. It was the chief song. When he got done with his repertoire of music, he called it the best. It was the best of all songs. And so today we're in the Song of Solomon. Let's go ahead and read. Let's go ahead and read the outline of the opening of our teaching today. As for the saints who are on the earth, that's the Psalm 16:3, they are the excellent ones in whom is all my delight. I want to repeat that again, because that's you and I. Now, it's one thing to believe that you're loved. Say, I am God's beloved. I'm His beloved. I am loved. Again, I'll repeat what I said last week. If you knew the extent that God went through to prepare you as His bride, to make you pure, holy, blameless, and perfect in His presence, through the righteousness of Christ, the extent that God went to make you a bride is incredible. It's awesome. Now, it's one thing to believe that you're loved, but this goes way beyond. God delights in you. Every time He looks at you, He delights in you. You're His delight. Think of that. Now, in the first chapter, the woman's a little insecure. The bride's a little insecure. She says, well, I'm dark and I'm tanned real bad because I've been out. My brothers I'm abused and I'm insecure. But in chapter 2, verse 1, she's lost all of her insecurity. Isn't God trying to take us from insecurity to security in Him? Amen. To where we really believe we're loved. Yeah. To where we really believe we're His delight. Every day when He looks down from heaven at us, He gets excited with delight. He said, that's my bride. You say, well, I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. You know what? Love covers a what? A multitude of sins. And God even has a way back. If you make a mistake, it's through the blood of Jesus. So we're in good shape. So we're His delight. Say, I'm His delight. God delights in me. God gets excited about me every day. One of the amazing emotions of God is His delight in the bride. It's one thing to believe that He loves us, but He delights in us goes way deeper. The Song of Solomon brings the great emotions of love to the surface. The way a man and a woman feel toward each other when they are lovesick. Now, I remember I lost some weight before I went back and married my wife. I was so in love with her, and I don't know if it was infatuation. I wasn't even around her. The thoughts of her. I just didn't want to eat for a month, until I went over and married her. I actually did. I lost about 15 pounds. And it I was lovesick. I remember that feeling. I mean, you can't live there all the time or you'll wilt away and die, you know what I mean? But how many have been lovesick? I mean, we ought to be that way about Jesus. We ought to be so emotionally stirred. You see, what chapter 2 is getting into is how to have intimacy. And God wants us to have intimacy with Him. The real story is how to enter into intimacy with Christ. He loves us to enjoy His voice and enjoy His, well, we don't see His face directly here, but we see it in the Word. All right, the way a man treats a woman, caught away with romance and infatuated with each other. Remember, love in marriage needs to be rekindled and reignited again and again. Now, you get married. I actually traveled through Rocky Mountains a few years ago. And we took what was called the Independence Pass. Mary Ann and I went through. We had our family gathering at a place called Glenwood Springs. And Glenwood Springs is a big heated pool, and it was a place where my family when I grew up, went to year after year. It was our vacation spot for my family, my 5 brothers, where there were 5 of us kids, and Mom and Dad would always go to Glenwood Springs. So we still meet there. It's just part of the memories of our family. And we went to Aspen, which is beautiful. If you've never been to Aspen, Colorado, it's gorgeous. But if you take the back road from Aspen, and it's kind of a dangerous road, and it's cliffs, but it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so we came back on an Aspen, and my cousin was with us, and he was asleep in the car. We're going over these beautiful mountains, and he's asleep. He said, "What's that about?" Well, I guess he was tired, but you know what? He'd seen the mountains so much, they didn't excite him anymore. I mean, for me, listen, there are no mountains in Florida. If you want a mountain, go to Brooksville. What, about 70, 80 feet over there? We go over there with the kids, we're going up and down hills, I mean, my kids were raised in the flattest place in America, right here in Florida. And I thought, you can get so used to the beauty of these mountains. You live here, you don't, you see it every day. You got to be careful in marriage that you don't get so used to your bride or bridegroom that they don't excite you anymore. So we see some little things here in this chapter that teach us how to reignite romance. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Isn't God practical? He made man and see the two move their chairs together. I love you guys. They were sitting way at the end of the table, and now they're right next to each other and holding hands. And this is great. You're the story of romance here in our study. Isn't that great? And they've been over at the Awakening this week. Whoa, we were there Sunday night. I know I had promised my wife I'd have the kids home. My kids went, and I said I'll have them home by 10 o'clock because they get up at 6 in the morning. And so we had to leave before the outpouring of the invitation. They were just given the invitation, so I took the kids and we left, and Ron was with us. We had to leave early. I'm sorry we had to. And my kids on the way home, they've never seen this kind of laughter stuff before, and they had a lot of questions. They said, "Dad, what is all this? What is all this laughter?" I said, "You know what? The world is so sad. It's about time we get happy in the Holy Spirit. And if people want to get a little overjoyed in the Holy Spirit, I'm all for it. Besides, it's in the book of Acts. They thought they were drunk on the day of Pentecost. They accused them of being drunk. So if you get so overwhelmed with the joy of the Lord that you act a little drunk, it's okay. It's the best way to be intoxicated because there's no hangover. Except the joy of the Lord. So if you enjoy that, by the way, I was watching him last night live on Facebook. He had 999 people watching when I went on. Daniel did. Daniel was on live last night in this revival, and he was just, it was fabulous. I mean, he was interviewing people that were getting hit by the Holy Spirit, and it was different than anything you see. And why does God send this? To get rid of religious spirits? The biggest hindrance to the move of God today is not demonism, it's not witchcraft, it's religion. And so God will sometimes send in these movements, these great awakenings, something so radical that it offends religion and religious spirits. I love it. So if you want some of this, you can go over to Rodney Howard Brown's meetings, or Daniel does some of this. And the joy of the Lord is our strength. And you see a lot of joy in chapter 2 of Solomon. You see a lot of joy. So let's read it, okay? Now look at the confidence of the Shulamite. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. By the way, I challenge you, unfortunately, we get too much of our theology out of songs. Not once is Jesus called the lily of the valley. That's not a male term. I mean, can you hear two truckers going down the road and they're doing their thing, hey, this is Lily of the Valley, how are you, Rose? Not a male thing, come on. This woman, it's a Shulamite woman who finally gets confidence in herself. We noticed in chapter 1, the king is noticing her. He said, don't keep your sheep over by their tent. Bring your sheep over by my tent. Bring your goats over. Come closer and unveil your face. I want to take a look at you. So we saw the first elements of love and infatuation and noticing attraction. I talked about the attraction last week. Well, today now we get into delight. Say delight. The key word in chapter 2 is delight. We're going to look at that here in a moment. So first of all, in your notes, delighting in his pleasure. All right, let's look at it. Delighting in his pleasure. Like an apple tree among the trees of the woods, so is my beloved among the sons. I sat down in the shade with great what? Come on. Delight. Are you looking in the word here? Great delight. Its fruit was sweet to my taste. And so here we have this beautiful delighting in the pleasure of their being together. Next is delighting in his person, by the way. First of all, is delighting in the pleasure. And it says, your eyes will behold the beauty of the king. The eyes will behold the beauty of the king. I was doing a video for Nancy, and some of the girls here did a beautiful track. You may want to watch it. We're re-editing some of it and putting it back up on Facebook. You want to watch it because it's full of images of beauty. You know, creation, what God made in creation. Do you ever just stop to enjoy the beauty of a flower? Solomon, all of his what? Glory was not arrayed like one of these. That's what Jesus said. Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. So the beauty that God has created all around us. Now, our beauty is not found in our outward appearance. It's found in our eyes, in our face, in our inner man. You know what I mean? I mean, what do you do when you marry somebody and they get old? Are they no longer beautiful? You may have been initially attracted by their looks, but beauty goes inside. Your real beauty is what's inside of you. Amen. That's where your beauty is. Nothing wrong with looking all right, but your beauty is what's inside of you. And that's what endures in a marriage. So here we have, first of all, the delighting in his pleasure. He provides shade and fruit. Now, if you're ever in a hot place, shade is pretty important. To get into shade. How many know that Florida, you know, it's nice to get in the shade. My kids like to go out to Clearwater Beach. I like the shade. I carry my umbrella. They say, Dad, you sit out here all day under the umbrella. I like the shade. I don't need the sun anymore. Oh, but they like it. You know, the kids like it. But now it's not like the Shulamite. She didn't like to be tanned. In those days, the beauty was, culturally, it's changed. You know, I mean, things change culturally. And back then, the whiteness was the beauty. And so here's this shade and the fruit of the tree. It's a pleasurable thing. What did Satan use to entice the woman? The tree. The tree and the fruit. Yeah. What does God use to bring us joy and peace? The tree. The shade of the tree. In Psalms 2, he talks about the tree. You should be like a tree planted by the rivers of living water, bringing forth its fruit in its season. So the fruitfulness and the joy of the tree, here Solomon refers to that. It's so full of beautiful, beautiful truths and beautiful meaning. So secondly, the Shulamite is delighting in his person. Now look at secondly, what does he bring her? First of all, he brings in her life the invitation to his banqueting house. Now it doesn't say the table here, it's to his banqueting house. How many know when a relationship develops enough you want to take them home and meet their parents? you know you're starting to get serious, right? You say, well, I want you to come to my house and I want you to meet. And so he's bringing her now for the first time, actually, into the palace of the king. And doesn't God set a table before us? Even in the presence of our enemies. Amen. You know, his banqueting house is the place of enjoying the food, enjoying the pleasure of one another. And it's his place of intimacy. And by the way, all these first two chapters, the Shulamite and the king have not come together physically. This is all part of their courtship. This is introduction to the marriage. That comes later. So this is all things that they are doing to get to know one another, to become close with one another. And so first of all, he brings me to his banqueting table, place of intimacy. Secondly, he sustains me. Look at what it says. He sustains me with the cakes of his raisins, refreshes me with his apples, for I am lovesick. Again, I say it's not sick of love. Some of us say, I'll never have another relationship with anybody. I know I've been abused enough. No. Listen, God wants to prepare us. He wants to prepare the bride to be healed enough to be in relationship. I know some of us that are here, have gone through things, and it's okay. I mean, you look back and maybe there'll be bad memories, but God heals the memories. I still see that little poodle. The power of the love of those people that take those animals in, that a lot of people would just dispose of them. But they rehabilitate them. And I'll tell you, love has an enormous power to heal. But it has to be in an atmosphere of holiness. Healing only comes in an atmosphere of holiness, right? Remember what we talked about? The beauty of holiness. And there's so much abuse out there today. There's so much misunderstanding today. People have been abused so much that it's hard for them to see the beauty of holiness. It's distorted. I was on the streets of San Francisco and we were ministering to some of these kids that wear black, and they always came down to our outreaches because we had food. And we never questioned them. They came down and they could take whatever they want, and a lot of the city rejected them. I found something interesting about those kids, the Gothic kids. They were the ones in San Francisco because they lived in tent cities in the park, some of them. And you know who took in the mentally ill of the city? Those kids. If there was a mentally ill person on the street, those kids would take him in and help him. I thought that was really unusual. So they did have a heart. And I remember this one kid, I told him, I said, don't you know your father loves you? And he says, let me show you something. He had a t-shirt, he pulled his shirt up on his back and he had all these scars on his back. He said, yeah, that's what my father did. I thought, the word father, to me, was somebody that carried me when I had rheumatic fever when I was 6 years old, and I always stayed in my dad's lap. We got pictures of him plowing with a team of horses. That tells how old I am. And I'm on the plow with Dad sitting on his lap when I was like 5 years old. I loved my dad, and he carried me. I see when I hear father, I hear something totally different than that kid heard on the street. You see what I mean? So when some of you women hear the word men, it may come across differently than somebody who hasn't been treated badly. So you have to get through that. You've got to heal up. That's why I believe the Song of Solomon is a good thing to go through right now. So we can get healed up. Amen? It's time to get healed up. God has good things for you. So when you hear the word father or you hear the word bridegroom, it's a positive emotion. And this is really what Solomon is trying to teach us. The joy of relationship. The joy of relationship. And so, delighting in his person. I know when you just look on somebody and get excited about them because they're your love, that's a beautiful thing. You will never totally understand romance. It's a mystery. You know what I mean? It's a mystery. Yet, how many thousands of movies have been made by it, and how much Hollywood has influenced our thinking about it? It's wrong. Romance is something different. God's romantic. God's romancing us. He's romancing us with love. And so we need to enter into that. I teach a lot on this. Over the years I've been teaching on the power of love and healing us. And the ability that we have to receive the truth of the fact that we are His beloved. And He cared so much about us that He sent His Son to prepare us to be His bride. Come on. How much more could God do? And God, like I said last week, is a hopeless romantic. He loves romance. That's why this story is such an exciting, wonderful story. All right. So first of all, He brings me to intimacy in His banqueting table. Secondly, He sustains me with His raisins. You see, God loves longevity. When infatuation wears off, and it does, you see, I really thought I knew this person when I met him. Hello, just wait. You're going to find out things that you didn't know at all. But true love works through those things. True love will help the other person be all they can be, lift them up, and we're going to see several things that help that here in this chapter. Words that are spoken over your love. We hear a lot about His voice coming up in the next few verses. How the voice of the beloved excites her. Why? Because they're words of love and positive words, words of affection, words of edification. So when somebody tells you you're beautiful, you know, how do you react to that?
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, you're like the lily of the valley and the rose. That's good. Or do you say, no, I'm not looking too good today. I didn't. Forget that. No. Receive it. Say thank you. Thank you. And that's the way we should be. And I know it's a mind stretch for some of us to believe that God delights in us. I know that to us just as it doesn't ring as a possibility in our emotions. We say, wait a minute. I can understand that He loves me in spite of myself. in spite of all my failures, He loves me anyway, unconditionally. But He delights in me? Wow. Hallelujah. That's a stretch. He delights in me. That's a stretch. So first of all, He brings me to the banqueting table. Secondly, He sustains me. He takes care of me. And by the way, I think one of the primary needs of a woman is security. But you know what? Most of all, this chapter, and in the first two chapters, all have this. You know what builds a relationship better than anything else? Is respect for one another. Men need respect more than anything. They need respect more than love. I still remember Rodney Dangerfield. I don't know whatever happened. Did he die? You know? What was his famous saying? What was it? I get no respect, you know. And he was kind of like speaking on a lot of men, you know, that their wives just didn't respect him. Maybe the wives had good reason not to. But a man, more than anything, needs respect. And so does a woman. But a woman particularly needs security. She needs to know that you're going to be there for her. And she's going to be secure in your love. And that's what longevity is. Taking care of somebody. And so He brings sustaining longevity. Third, He embraces her. Now let's read it here. This is good. The strength of His right arm. His left hand is under my head, and His right hand embraces me. Now what does the right hand represent? Strength. You know, when you hear about God's right hand, you hear about His what? His strength, His sustaining power, His authority. And so here the Shulamite says, His left hand is under my head and His right hand embraces me. She feels his strength. And so you begin to see the emotion of this relationship developing and the joy that she finds in the security of her love and in the provision of her love, and now in the strength of his arms. All right. Is it a great love story? Is this a wonderful love story? And thirdly, or fourthly, he stirs me. Now, she uses some interesting imagery here. I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the does in the field, do not stir or awaken love until it pleases. Now, what she's saying here is emotions can get carried away in the courtship. But if we're talking about the beauty of holiness, you know, there's this new video on, you've got to see it if you haven't seen it. And by the way, I recommend you go to the movie. It's called Priceless. Have you heard the song Priceless? They're playing it a lot on Joy FM right now. And it's some young guys out of Australia that did the song and did the movie. And the young man who acts the main actor in the movie just recently got married. And he married a well-known singer, a beautiful singer, a young lady. And they made a vow not to kiss until their wedding. And so when you hear the song Priceless, they waited. They waited during their courtship. They didn't even kiss. They wanted to save that for their wedding. I thought that was exciting. And this young man now has done this movie called Priceless, and it's on women that are trafficked. And it's a Christian movie. It's coming out shortly in the theaters. I highly recommend it. The young man that acts the part is the one that sings this song Priceless. And they did this song around their wedding. And they actually, at the wedding, they videotaped the wedding and then put the song on top of that. It's beautifully done. I recommend you go to it on your YouTube. Bring it up. The name of the song is Priceless. And you're hearing it. And the name of the group is King and Country. King and Country. They're awesome singers. And by the way, they're going to be over at the Strawberry Festival. And I've already talked to my family about going. They love the idea. We're going to go and hear King and Country. And they're out of Australia. And they're making a real groove right now in the music industry, especially in Christian music. Powerful, powerful. I should have brought the song up. I'll try to have it next week for you. Priceless. It's absolutely beautiful. But it shows the beauty, hello, are you with me? The beauty of holiness. Waiting in the relationship until marriage to kiss one another. And what she's saying to the daughters here is, listen, we've made a commitment, the king and I, excite love before it's time. Now, that's not what Hollywood says. That's not what TV says anymore. Try the guy out, try the girl out. If it works out, fine. Listen, when you give yourself away, like some of these people do so many times, you have nothing left. You know what I mean? And I remember my wife's first kiss. Man, it kept me awake half the night. It was a kiss. And there's something romantic about the first kiss. And she said, don't excite love before it's time. And this, by the way, is repeated all through the book of Solomon. So the timing is very important. Hello? In romance. If you want the romance to be the best, listen, you got 80 years with them the rest of your life if you live that long. You can wait for the first kiss. So she said, don't excite love before it's time. Interesting, isn't it? All right. So we first of all have the delighting in his pleasure, then delighting in his person. And let's take this, what he uses. Now, what the man uses, and these are some little things you may want to try out, men, to excite romance in your marriage. These are just suggestions that Solomon gives, all right? His banner over me, he waves his banner over me. His banner over me is love. Show her love. Do things. Now, my wife thinks it's a little bit romantic when I do the dishes. I don't. Or if I'm vacuuming the house. But she'll come to me, and the other day our dryer broke down. And she was ready to call the handyman, and I said, I'll fix it. Whew, did I know the heat element went out of my dryer. So I went on YouTube and I found the video, and a guy perfectly explained the exact model of our dryer. So I took it all apart, and you should have seen our laundry room. I had pieces of dryer all over the place. I mean, I had to take that blooming thing at 20 pieces, and I finally got the heat element out, and I ordered the heat element locally here, actually on Amazon. Came in, I put it back in and fixed it all up, and she says, "Oh, honey," she said, "this is so wonderful." She saw it as an act of love. She said, "Thank you for getting right on this." I climbed up on the roof. We put the ladder against the roof, because the reason the heat element quit is the vent had become plugged. And I think it was plugged when we bought our house a year ago, because we've been having a problem drying the clothes for a year. Now you just put the towels in there, dry like in 15 minutes. It's just, it's wonderful. And she keeps referring back to it, I kind of wave that banner, you know what I mean? I say, okay, I'll do it. I'll take care of this, And women like that. Yeah, women like, it's a little bit romantic, isn't it? When a man takes a little responsibility around the house and shows his love in ways that are dynamic. And for us, it's like, hello, call the repairman. Man, we saved $250. Take her out to dinner. Lobster. Man, you can have lobster and steak for that. Come on. All right, so the banqueting. So his banner over me is love, and then he brings the cakes and the apples. She says, "For I am lovesick," and then he embraces her, and he stirs the love in her, but under control, as I mentioned. Do not awaken it before it's time. So, first of all, we have the delighting in the pleasure of the person. Secondly, delighting in the person. Do you really enjoy just being with them? Now look at the next section, because now you get into the elements that cause intimacy. The voice of my beloved. Behold, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, he stands behind our wall. He is looking through the windows, gazing through the lattice. Now, how's Jesus Christ, the bridegroom, coming back? In what? Clouds. There's something romantic about, and mysterious a little bit, about hiding. You know what I mean? And in this romance, she says he just doesn't walk up to knock on the door. He looks through the lattice. He notices me through the lattice. And there's kind of a mystery here, kind of a scene of mystery. But she hears his voice. She hears his voice, and that's what excites her. And you know what this tells me? That women particularly are sensitive to what you say.
Very much.
More than us men. We're kind of, hello, Probably for a lot of us, it just goes right over our head, But women listen to not only the words, but the way it's said, and the inflections. And so words spoken can be very, very powerful if they're positive and loving and compassionate and understanding. A lot of women just want you to hear. We're going to talk about the little foxes here, because the brothers come to the Shulamite and said, listen, here's what's going to hurt your relationship if anything does. The little foxes are going to spoil the vine. It's the little things in life that sometimes create a problem. You know what I mean? Now I'll tell you one of my wife's pet peeves. I'm talking a lot personally. Is that okay? Is it okay to tell a bit of my story here? My wife will text me stuff to get from the grocery store, a list. When I come home with the wrong things, she said, "You didn't read my list." I said, "Yes, I did." "Oh, flatbread." I don't, what's flatbread? It's the little foxes that you see, and that's hard for us men. Most of us are duh. It's kind of a men thing just to not pay attention too much, to watch the ball game and, focus, and it just kind of, we're out there somewhere. So when you take time, because here the face is mentioned all through this, when you take time to look into her eyes and listen to her, you know what that's going to do? It's going to help build that intimacy in that relationship. And I'm practicing this all the time. You're looking at somebody that's not the best at it. Even my kids say, "Dad, are you listening?" Carol, my assistant, will say, Did you get this? Am I atypical, or are most men this way? Are you this way, Victor? Yeah. Are you? Okay, thank you for helping me out. Come on. I thought you might say no and it really wound me. All right. What about you, Ralph? You hear it nonstop, right. So we need to work at this. Men need to work at paying attention to what you say, how you say it, the inflection of the voice. The words that are spoken are really, really important. You know, the words can be like honey, or they can be like vinegar. You know what I mean? I love apple cider vinegar. You know, it's supposed to be good for your body, but it sure tastes strange. Somebody called me the other day and said, you know, we were talking on the phone. He says, I got to go take a Tums. I said, don't take a Tums. I said, do you have apple cider vinegar? He said, yeah, it's about a year old. I said, never ages. Go get it. Just go take a little cup of some water. And he said, really, that works? I said, you don't need Tums. Apple cider vinegar. Is that right, Ron? You're the health specialist. But you shouldn't say words to your wife that make her take apple cider vinegar. Your words should be honey. Think before you speak. Might help, right? So the voice of the beloved, she hears him coming down the lane, and when he arrives, he doesn't come immediately to the door. He looks through the lattice. He kind of comes secretly, a little mysteriously here. Very romantic. All right. And his voice, the voice of his coming. Rise up, he said, my love, my fair one, and come away. Boy, don't women like to hear that. I want to go out with you. Men, if you really want to blow their minds, say, honey, let's go shopping. Oh, I hate shopping. I hate shopping. Why do men hate shopping? I'd rather be punched than shop. But well, you know, my wife doesn't have a problem with that. She's very careful about what she spends. But when I go shopping with her, it lights her up. She gets so romantic, holds my hand between the aisles, and what is it about shopping that's so romantic? It's because, thank you, Dolores. You just hit the nail on the head almost every time. Because you're there. Because she knows it's a sacrifice. So she says, when you say, honey, let's go shopping, it'll blow her mind. It'll probably make her more romantic than she's been in a long time. That might work better than flowers. Does that make sense? No. Because women understand when you're willing to sacrifice for them. And by the way, that's what Jesus does for us, right? Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and he what? Gave himself for her. And I'll be doing something in the other room sometime in my house, and I'll just hear the Spirit of God say, go and just be with your wife. Just talk to her. Just sit beside her and say, honey, how you doing? Have a good day? Just show a little interest. Who knows what might happen? You just might excite a little love. And so romance is wonderful, but you know what? We men forget a lot about these things. So the voice of the beloved and what he says is a key to this romance. It's a key to this romance. And so I'm getting better at it. All right. So what does it say here? Rise up, my love. We love the sound of his coming for us. What is it called for the church, the sound of the second coming of Christ? It's called the what? The blessed hope. It's the blessed hope of the church. Matthew 24:31, and he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from all the four winds of the earth. Are we looking forward to the coming of Christ? Yeah, it's one of the blessed hopes. And there's an excitement, hopefully, in your heart when your husband's coming home from work and you haven't seen each other all day. And by the way, don't walk in the house and start barking, men, about a bunch of stuff. Take some time. Stop. Notice her. Acknowledge her. Tell her how beautiful she is. She may still have her bathrobe on. It's okay. She's been working on the house all day. Not all made. It didn't matter. Beauty is not on the outside. It's on the inside. And so, here it is. All right. The voice of his coming. Secondly, the voice of his mystery. Behold, he stands behind our wall, looking through the windows, gazing through the lattice. And we know that Jesus shall come. And then the voice of the harvest. I love this. I love this. Look at this section here. And really what it's saying is, well, let's look at it. My beloved spoke to me. Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, and the rain is over and gone. The flower appear on the earth, and the time of singing has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Don't you love turtle doves? Sometimes I just listen. We have trees out in our backyard, and we're next to a kind of a conservation in the back of our house. And I love the sound of turtle doves. I don't know what there is. Cuckoo, they just have that mellow sound. Why is the Holy Spirit called a dove? Because he's gentle. He's gentle and kind. Thank you. Yeah, and so, be it a little bit like, I know men, it doesn't fit our character a lot, but be a little bit like the turtle dove. Coo a little bit, right? Pardon? They mate for life. Yeah, they mate for life. That's another one. The turtle doves mate for life. So I told you last week about, the taxidermy. I'll never do that again. Those dove eyes looking up. I still can admit that happened like 40 years ago, and I still remember it. And so the dove is a beautiful picture, often a picture of love, because of the softness. Yes?
What was the name of the third point?
Oh, we're not down to the third point yet. Oh, we are, yeah. Delighting in his pronouncements. I'm sorry. First of all, delighting in his pleasure. Secondly, delighting in his person. Thirdly, delighting in his pronouncements. His pronouncements. By the way, what does God say to us? What did Jesus say to his disciples before he left? He spoke what? Peace. Peace I leave with you. Peace I give unto you. Let not your heart be troubled. You know what I have to tell my wife oftentimes? Honey, it'll be okay. She says, well, how's the income? How are the finances coming? Honey, don't worry about it. It's all right. We're covered. Has God been faithful? Give words of reassurance, words of affirmation, words of security. Make him feel that it's okay. Now, sometimes you may need to talk about finances in some situations, and maybe you need to talk about it as a couple. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just this reassurance that you constantly give her, the words that he spoke to her. Honey, the rain's over. The winter's past. Doesn't that sound good? Springtime. Don't you love the springtime? We're coming into springtime right now. I love the springtime, and you don't see a lot of change in Florida, but in Colorado, where I lived and grew up, man, when you shoveled snow through the winter and had to go out and feed the cattle every morning and your hands would freeze, and you love the springtime. And one of the joys of being on the ranch with my dad was to watch the first part of spring. As the corn would come up, we'd go out and we'd dig up sometimes a little kernel to see if they're fermenting properly, and then you'd see the crop begin to come up in the fields, and all the fields that lay bare and all winter long now become green. It's a beautiful time of the year, especially where there are strong seasons. Like I say, I don't feel it so much here because Florida's pretty green all year round. I love the green, but I do miss sometimes the winter, the real feeling of winter. Only for about 5 minutes, and then I want to go back to Clearwater Beach. All right, so, I don't miss it too much. My aunt and uncle had a picture. I never saw a palm tree before I was 18 years old. In person, I saw them in pictures. But I was raised in a part of the nation. We didn't have palm trees. It was snow. It was cold. Palm trees didn't grow out there. And my aunt and uncle had a picture in their home that they had picked up in Boca Raton, Florida. There used to be a big conference grounds in Boca Raton, a Christian conference grounds years ago. This was back in the 50s and 60s. And I'd go to Adam and Esther, that was my aunt and uncle. I'd go to their house and I'd sit and look at that picture, and I said, if I ever can live close to a palm tree in an island, I'm going to move there. I was so tired of the cold of Colorado, and I think they're tired of it north. I heard it on the news the other day. People said, I want to move down to Florida. Somebody said on the news, we are so tired of the snow and digging out and sliding around. And aren't we? I tell my wife all the time, honey, isn't it wonderful where we live? all those watching around the world, I'm sorry. You know, I have to tell you that Florida is so wonderful. But we love it down here. We moved here in 97, and we never move out because we just enjoy it. We enjoy what Florida is. And I can fly to the mountains for a weekend to ski or whatever. You know, we can do that and enjoy a little of the snow, but come home. Right, come back home. And I run my air conditioning 2 days so I can burn my fireplace here, but that's okay. You know, we had to burn our fireplace over the holidays, you know, and I've got a fireplace. I love our home. We got a fireplace. You look out in the woods behind and that fire going, and it's just homey, you know. So we have to do that in Florida. You got to run the air conditioning 2 days to burn the fire, but that's okay. Not very economical, but it works. And so we love it. So the winter is over. The winter is past. The rain is over. The flowers appear. The time of singing. The birds singing. The sound of the turtle dove. The fig tree puts forth her green figs, and the vines with her tender grapes give a good smell. Rise up, my love, my fair one. Now, what does he keep saying? His words are words of love and affirmation, aren't they? He keeps saying to her, rise up, my love, my fair one. Tell her how beautiful she is. You're beautiful. I love you. Let's go. Let's go be together. All right. Come away, he says. Come away. And so there's the pronouncements of his voice and the whole voice of the harvest. The voice of the harvest. The winter is past. And I love the time of spring and harvest when we were on the farm and just irrigating and watching the crops go and then harvesting them. And that's a joy. I really kind of miss the farm life. I don't know if it's my age or whatever, but I just kind of reminisce back when I was back on the farm. It was a beautiful life. And you know, the Bible is written a lot around the agricultural concepts. Really, when you understand the teachings of Jesus, the seed, you know, the harvest. A lot of the things that he talks about are related to farm. And so, you know, it gives a little advantage having been raised on the farm and around animals. You know, the Bible talks a lot about animals. And so when you understand the animals and how they function in nature, you can see that in Florida as well. But I enjoyed the farm, and I see a lot of that here in this Song of Solomon. All right, then finally, delighting in the presence of his face. Now, our faces, how often this face is mentioned here? Let's read on here as we finish up. O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the secret places of the cliff, let me see your what? Face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet, and your face is lovely. Now, faces become the picture of who you are. I see Roberta walk in here with a joyful face every week. And most of you come that way. Stephanie comes with a big smile on her face. Carol comes with a big... Now I'm in trouble. I better mention everybody. And, and you know, your face tells a story. Your face tells a story. And especially when you're in love. Now, how do we see two people in love? They're looking what? Face to face. They're looking at each other's face. Cross-eyed, right. It's cross-eyed. And so somebody's face becomes the place of attraction, the place of connection, the place of beauty. Your eyes are the window to your what? Soul. So your eyes are like dove's eyes, you know. And some of these pictures, you know, Linda, see your neck is like the Tower of David. I don't know if that would fly today. You know, if you're talking to somebody, honey, you got a tower neck. That may not be the term you want to use. Some of this is cultural, but I'm sure you can find something beautiful to say about them, right? Something beautiful to say about them. So we have his face. His face tells a story. Oh, my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the cliff, we just let me see your face. Now, then finally, we're going to finish with this. Finally, the warning of the brothers, like I said earlier. Her brothers, catch up the foxes with the little foxes that spoil the vines, for our vines have tender grapes. Tender grapes. Now, foxes are not large animals. They can go down among the vines and you don't even hardly notice them. Now we have outside the front of our house, we've got a little bit of a problem. I asked our lawn man about it. I said, what's the deal with these holes in the ground? I keep filling them up because they're disturbing my bushes. A couple of these bushes. Armadillos. He said, this is a stopping station for armadillos. He says, you can dig up these holes, you can fill them and he says, within a week or two, because during the night, the armadillos come through town and stop at our place. I don't know, maybe they like where we live. I don't know. And they dig up those holes again. So the bushes right next to those holes aren't doing very well. So I did find a solution. Mothballs. Armadillos don't like, so I'm going to go out today and buy some mothballs.
Also, you put newspaper down the hole and light it, and it's the smell of smoke.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, but they're not always there. They just stay the night and go. They only pay one night at a time.
It's a scent. It will stay there. The scent will
Oh, the scent, and they don't like that either?
Right.
Well, that's even better than mothballs. I've got newspapers and it won't cost me a thing. See, this class is so practical. How would I know that kindness was not a virtue? I mean, how would I know that newspapers work in the whole of the armadillos? So,
mothballs are not kind to the environment.
oh, mothballs aren't good for the environment? Then I won't use mothballs. Newspapers it is. Everybody watching this worldwide, newspapers for armadillo holes in your front yard. So there's some practical stuff, all right. So, but here's the point. It's the little foxes that spoil the vine. Isn't that true? The little things that irritate us. And you know what my response is when my wife says, honey, that's no big deal. The grapes are what? Tender. The grapes on these vines are tender. So the fox can easily disturb them, destroy them. So maybe we ought to pay a little more attention, men. I'm really speaking to the men today, okay? You women are probably enjoying it. But men, we need to be careful, and women as well. It's the little things we do to each other over and over again that become big things. Pardon?
That's for women. They love the details.
Yeah, women are detail-oriented. Oh, man. We don't need details, you know. I mean, I see the big picture, you know, honey. I love you, and it doesn't matter if I come home with the wrong bread. Oh, it does to her.
It means you're not attentive.
Yeah, because it shows her that I am not attentive, and I'm letting the little foxes spoil the vine. So I'm preaching, listen, I'm getting this message today, all right? I'm preaching to myself as well. So, I mean, this is great because you know what? This all has to do of how to build romance. Amen. How to reignite your marriage if it needs reignited. Maybe show a different attitude about things. Maybe say, honey, I'm going to work on this. That'd be nice news instead of, oh, it's no big deal. I'll work on it. I'll read the text a little more carefully. And so watch the little foxes in your relationship. And that's what the brothers are smart enough to know this. They said, Shulamite, you got a good thing going with the king. We can see that you're in love. The king's infatuated with you, and you're infatuated with him, and you're lovesick. But they warned her. They said, if you don't watch the little foxes, they'll spoil the vine. That's a good lesson to us, isn't it? It's kind of interesting in the middle of this love story that this comes up. So it must be significant. So watch the little foxes. You may want to start a list of things that annoy your mate. You know, it's only happened about 50 times. Maybe we'll finally get it and correct it. Yes?
One of the professors at the university where I studied, they call them, it's called the TTs.
Aha.
The divorce. It's called tremendous trivias.
Tremendous trivias.
Yeah, so squeezing the toothpaste, the socks left in the corner, all that stuff, and all that stuff added up. Pretty soon, it's a cascade. It's like that dam in California.
Yeah.
It just comes crashing down.
That's it. The dam fills up with water, and then you got an emergency going. And she's just annoyed with you all the time. You wonder why she's angry. The TTs, I'll remember that. Tremendous trivials become a mountain or a lake fill where the dam's going to break if you're not careful. And you know, it's hard to correct some of these things because, like I say, we've been doing it so long. We're habits of what? I mean, we're creatures of habit So, I've been this way ever since you married me, honey, get used to it. Well, guess what? She's not going to get used to it. If she'd have gotten used to it, she would have 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So maybe this is a good lesson for some of us, Ralph and Victor, and maybe it's a good lesson for us to. Amen. Isn't this true, Victor? Am I speaking the truth? Is this true? Is the Bible true? When Mama's not happy. Oh, what's that Indian movie? What is it? If you want a good life. What is it? Oh, happy. Yeah, that Indian movie. I love that Indian movie. Happy wife, happy life. Unhappy wife, hell on earth. All right, I'm just telling you right now. So if you want to keep her happy, thank you. The brothers, thank you for giving this suggestion to the Shulamite. Watch the foxes that spoil the vine. And for us to do that, we've got to hear what the other person is saying.
Make a list.
And make a list. I'm going to do that. See, I just talked myself. What are iPads for? You know that thing on iPads that says take notes? Might want to try that. My list of little foxes that are spoiling our vine right there.